Well, hey, everybody, welcome to In the Growth Space. Really glad to have you along with me here today. I'm really grateful that we're here at episode 197. We are 3 episodes away from 200. Gosh, it is really hard to believe. But if you're new to the podcast, we talk about personal growth and business growth and leadership growth. And I typically will interview and have conversations with really interesting people, really interesting, usually business leaders, business owners, and today is no exception. And we're going to dive into each of those categories of growth because our guest, Colton Hower, has a bunch of great stories about how he has grown. Before we get into that, though, and before I tell you a little bit about Colton, make sure that you have subscribed to the podcast. And if you're subscribing on YouTube, make sure you click the little bell so that you're notified when we have new episodes. As I mentioned, we are coming up on the 200th episode, and I'm really looking forward to releasing that. I'm going to share some of my biggest ahas, some of my biggest growth lessons from nearly 5 years of podcasting. It really is hard to believe that 5 years have gone by in podcasting and creating these episodes for you. Make sure that you tune in because I guess my team is telling me that they've got some kind of a top secret something that they're going to do for me for that episode. And so whatever they're cooking up, it's going to be great. And I'm really excited about it. So hopefully you will tune in. Now, today's show is about a guest that I was introduced to a number of months ago. And Colton Hower was introduced to me by a friend of mine. And the reason why was because Colton has really grown his company. And not only has he grown his company, but he's also grown his own leadership and his own personal development as well. He's grown his company from a startup to over 100 clients now. So Colton Hower is the founder and CEO of Power Marketing Company, which is a full-scale digital marketing agency based right here in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. He was born and raised here, and he is an avid sports fan, and he played baseball at the Division I level. I don't know if you can grow up here in Pittsburgh and not be an avid sports fan. It's definitely a sports town. But professionally, he is a proven marketing expert that's been delivering results for companies across an extensive range of industries and currently has 108 active clients in his agency's portfolio. And he's extremely passionate about helping businesses thrive in today's fast-evolving digital landscape, and he thoroughly enjoys his day-to-day focus on leading with integrity, leading with data, and on a relentless focus on delivering value. Now, I know that you're going to enjoy this conversation with Colton about his growth journey, and I want to share that with you. So let's go ahead and get into that right now with Colton Hower. Well, hey, Colton, great to have you on here in the growth space, and I'm looking forward to this conversation.
Thank you, David. Thank you for having me. I've been looking forward to it as well. So excited to dive in.
Yeah, man, I am always excited to talk to business owners, business leaders, people who have gone on their own growth journey. And I know you've got one as well. And so I'm just kind of curious, tell a little bit about yourself, maybe, what's your company? Tell me a little bit about your journey.
Yeah, absolutely. I'd be happy to. So, I am the founder and owner of Power Marketing Company. So, I started up our shop a little bit over 3 years ago. We're a full-scale digital marketing agency, managing everything from day-to-day social media marketing for clients to website development and technical efforts, and anything on that digital marketing spectrum wanted to be able to accommodate for a client request that may throw out at us.
Nice.
The bread and butter of our agency is my personal expertise too, which is paid advertising. So
Gotcha.
search advertising, social advertising, when you're at home talking about how you want to buy something and then it pops up all over your feed
Yep.
later that night. I'm the creepy guy that's doing that behind the scenes, basically.
I love
So
it.
yeah, so in kind of the 3 year journey that we've had, been fortunate to be able to scale. We just eclipsed 100 clients earlier
Nice.
this year. Thank you, thank you.
Congratulations.
So
That's awesome.
yeah, been celebrating that. From a personal side, I'm born and raised out of Pittsburgh. That's where Power is headquartered as well. We have 17 team members, with 16 of them based out of Pittsburgh, which was not by design, but luckily and fortunately happened for our sake.
Nice.
But I'm black and gold the whole way through. I'm a
Love
big
it.
sports guy. And I just have a really big passion for working alongside business owners and really kind of helping push businesses forward. My day-to-day personally is client servicing. So I'm speaking to the CEOs, the founders, the decision makers that we work with on a day-to-day basis at Power, and that's what kind of energizes me and fires me up, is figuring out ways to help solve their problems, push their business forward, and us all grow together. So
Oh man, I love that. I love that. Well, one of the things I know about you is that you're a big baseball fan, and I just recently got a chance to meet Clint Hurdle. So if you're a black and gold guy, you know Clint. And
yeah.
I'm really hoping to have him on the podcast as well. But tell me a little bit about your baseball journey, because I know that that was an area of growth for you too. And just so tell me, what did you play? What was your position and all that kind of stuff?
Yeah, absolutely. So I was a pitcher. I was fortunate enough to play at the Division I level. So I got a
Nice.
scholarship offer to play at the University of Maryland, Baltimore County.
Gotcha.
So prior to that, when I was in high school here around the Pittsburgh area, I was playing both sides of the field. They kind of pushed me towards pitching because I could throw hard. I didn't always know where it was going, but yeah, I
I
could
love
throw a
it.
pretty good fastball. So
I love it.
I got to UMBC, and that's kind of where a lot of things shifted. I went there with a focus kind of on baseball, as every athlete typically
Sure.
does, right? Like
Yeah.
education second, I'm a baseball
Of
player.
course.
Um, but when I told myself is that I know I was playing at the highest level, I kind of added pressure onto my plate, and I said I really wanted to be as coachable as possible. I wanted to be the
Mm,
first guy on the field, last guy to leave, do everything that the coach or seniors and leadership would ask of me.
yeah.
And to long story short with it, I honestly kind of overwhelmed myself mentally to the point where I
Yeah.
developed the yips.
Oh
So
yeah.
for non-baseball guy fans out there, the yips are pretty typical for pitchers. And what happened with mine is I wasn't able to slow myself down. So when I had to
Mm,
throw hard and like let it loose, I was pretty decent. But throwing like a little casual thing to first base or playing catch, I couldn't do.
yeah.
And it was shocking. And again, like I will be the first one to say baseball is a game, and I know that
Yeah.
there's a lot more beyond that in life. But for me, it was all that I ever knew. Like the
Mm,
comparison I gave is like it's like a painter forgetting how to like pick up a paintbrush because I couldn't even play catch. Like
yeah. Wow.
or yeah, like a mathematician not being able to do basic rudimentary
Mm,
uh, problems and equations because it's just stripped down from you at the most basic level.
yeah.
So while I was there, like as I was going through this, and again, you're playing at the highest level, that it's a little bit of a job, and you could lose your job in a lot of sense, and they have to cut you and move on.
Mm-hmm.
That I ultimately said to myself, I need to figure out a way to add value. I have to
Mm,
figure out a way that even if I'm not being put on the mound because I'm not executing as I should be athletically, I have to bring value to the team.
sure.
So I was the best teammate I possibly could be. I made a ton of good friends.
Mm,
I was very empathetic to even like as a freshman, I had seniors coming to me that trusted my advice,
mm,
understood my baseball IQ and my intelligence, and would kind of lean
uh,
on me for that.
mm,
But I struggled with that my entire time. So freshman year, sophomore year, I was still very wild. I couldn't kind of get it under wraps.
mm.
Um, and then I actually fast tracked my education and was able to graduate a year early in 3 years.
Wow.
Um, so as I was fast tracking that, my third year, which was my senior year, the thing I'm most proud of is I got voted captain
Oh
of the
wow.
team overall. So
Nice.
again, like any sports guy, you either lead by example on the field, and that's how you earn a captainship, or
Mm-hmm.
you do what I did basically, was earn so much respect and be such a good leader that even though
Yeah.
I'm not leading by example, and you should do the opposite of what I was doing on the field, I was still able to be very positively viewed in the eyes of my teammates. And it
Yeah.
meant a lot to me. At that time, I got more captain votes and earned that honor than I had innings pitched
Wow.
across a 2 year spectrum.
Wow.
So I think that's kind of a fun stat that I like to throw out there, but goes to
Yeah.
show kind of who I developed as a person. And that
Yeah.
that failures and being stripped down, like being able to have a mini success and earn, be a captain. I ultimately pitched a little bit here and there my final year and got some kind of innings under my belt there, which was a great experience as well. But it
Sure.
taught me how to bring value to the table and to know what failure feels like and never want to experience that again. Like that's been
Yeah.
by far the biggest driver is I was literally crying in my dorm room because I couldn't figure out how to throw the thing that I've been throwing for the past 18 years of my life.
Yeah, sure.
And knowing that I never wanted to experience that again, I've taken that throughout every day of my professional career as well. So
Yeah, and what's interesting is it's moments like that when we do experience failure that helps us to learn. I think it helps us to learn the most about ourselves and about life even, because failure is part of the process. Failure is part of how we, like, even in your company, I'm sure there have been points of failure where you've learned from. And so I think that, as you look at that failure, I think, just being able to look at it from a perspective of what did I learn and what were some of the lessons and then how did I adapt? And, the cool thing was, it sounds like you adapted really well to making sure that you are leading the people in the dugout so that you could, help them and help others as well.
correct. Like even in my personal opinion, even when you're going through those struggles or hardships, there's still a lot of value to be added and ways you can be productive for people outside of yourself. Like that, I think that personally shows a lot of toughness, and
Yes.
mental fortitude that even when I was personally at my lowest, freaking out about having to play catch with my best friends,
Yeah.
so to speak, on a day-to-day basis, I was still able to apply myself in other ways that could help push the team forward. And
Mm,
ultimately, my sophomore year, my second year there too, we won the first conference championship in team history as well.
nice. Nice.
That or the second one, sorry, I should say, in ever in UMBC history at the Division 1 level. So being a part of that and be able to experience that, even though I wasn't directly applicable of being able to produce on the field, I mean that's something I'll
Yeah.
take with me forever. And I
Cool.
truly believe if I wasn't such a great teammate, if I got down in the dumps freshman year and kind of cashed it all in,
Yeah.
that I may not even been on the roster my second year to be able to experience something like that. So that
Yeah.
there's more than one lesson to take away from some from failures. You're 100% right.
Well, and even as I hear you talk about that, one of the things I think it's important for leaders to remember is that if you're on a team, you can contribute. You may not necessarily be on the field all the time, so to speak, but you can contribute. And I think that contribution could be being a listening ear, being someone who encourages another person that is on the team, or maybe you're the one who gives feedback. Whatever the case may be, if you're in the dugout and you're helping your team win, that's just as important as being on the field. And
Yeah.
I think that's a really important lesson.
100%. And from my perspective, like in those team environments, everybody operates and communicates differently too,
Yeah,
and the biggest benefit that I have as a strategic communicator, if you will, is being able to level with the person that I'm interacting with. So I know the individuals that may need tough love. I know the other ones that
sure.
may be really down in the dumps and need encouragement to be picked
Yeah,
up. And you have to kind of pick and choose your battles too, which
right.
the sports environment, I mean, being a 35-man roster on a baseball team, you're going to get every single personality under the sun
Personality,
on.
yeah, for sure.
From a business perspective, every one of the 17 team members at Power operates a different way. And I know the ones that
Yeah.
need to be challenged and held to a higher standard to keep
Hmm.
progressing forward, and the others that are just getting started and need some confidence in building there before we can kind of push the
Yeah.
limits of expectations and standards. So
Yeah.
just kind of the balance and understanding who you're working with, I think, is a
Yeah.
huge quality that leaders should prioritize as well.
Yeah, I wholeheartedly agree, Colton. You're being a mentor to your team, their power, and I'm just kind of curious, who was a mentor for you? Did you have a mentor, or maybe several of them, as you were growing up, and even as you were starting your company?
Yeah, I definitely would have several. I try my dad, my father, I try to follow in his footsteps a lot. So kind of going all the way through when I was living at home through high school and everything, I was kind of emulating the actions there, and he's been a huge role model for me. And
Nice.
then from the sports side of things, coaches and individuals that have been able to push me there. From a
Mm,
professional perspective, I have two people right now that are really great in my corner. One's named Michael Deaney, who's the COO of a Pittsburgh-based company called Celenture, and the other is David Cerroti, who is the head of a PR firm called Imagine. And both of them have helped me in different ways. Like David Cerroti is directly in my marketing space and has
mm.
been for longer than I've been born, basic or longer than I've been alive. He's been working in this space. So
Nice.
being able to kind of follow in his footsteps and see how he conducts business, and
Yeah,
he does it with a very transparent sense, which is something I pride myself in and the way that I want to operate. So
sure.
I've been able to really see how he prioritizes client dynamics, client servicing, and
Hmm.
follow in that footsteps. And then for Michael's side, he has shown me a lot of efforts of just general business growth is a lot of his
Yeah.
day to day is working with his clients, consulting, helping them push their own unique models forward. And
Okay.
that's a lot of what I have to do too, is working with 100 clients that range from small mom and pops or startups to a couple Fortune 100 entities that are in our portfolio. It's
Nice.
a lot of different problems that we have to solve for. So
Mm,
he's showed me kind of the best ways to navigate that, the best ways to bring other people into the sphere to help push things forward as well and
hmm.
network in a sort of sense and
Sure.
collaborate, I should say.
Yeah.
So those two guys I've been very fortunate to have in my corner for the past few years since I started Power and excited to continue to grow with them moving forward as well. So
Yeah, no, I love that. And that just got me curious about you starting Power, and like what led you to start the company in the first place?
yeah, great question. So, I when I graduated from UMBC, I came home and I started working for a local agency in Pittsburgh as well as an
Okay.
account executive, as an advertising specialist. And the agency was smaller, in a sense that I was wearing a lot of hats, and it taught
Yeah.
me really kind of feet to the fire experience of all the different elements that go into an agency. It was a fantastic learning experience.
Yeah.
And as I learned like the technical nuances of how to run a digital marketing agency, I always leaned on the fact of my communication skills and my people skills that
Hmm.
I knew would help me from a business development and sales perspective. So
Mm.
after working there for about 3 to 4 years, I kind of said that, you know what, I think I can do this on my own. I think I can give it a shot and see where it goes. And I had a number of loyal clients at that time that were kind of working with me so closely that they were able to build the foundation of my portfolio.
Hmm.
And to be transparent, David, the growth of Power has all been word of mouth. It
Yeah,
has been
love that.
us working with great people, very happy with the services we're providing,
Yep.
and they're telling friends and other business owners, and we've just continued to expound beyond that,
Mm.
or continue to expand beyond that, I should say.
Yeah.
So that gave me a lot of confidence up front. I've always been a gambler. I've always been a risk taker that I had the confidence in myself that I'd be able to figure it out one way or another.
Yeah.
And luckily, it's been a pretty smooth process of our scale across these 3 years that I
Mm.
haven't had to look back or worry of what if that jump and leap of faith wouldn't have worked out. So.
Sure. Well, and I think that, having confidence in yourself and betting on yourself, it's so important because when you bet on yourself, you're going to give it your all. You're going to give it everything you've got and then some. And I mean, I think that that applies in sports, it applies in business, and it applies in life.
Yeah.
Oh,
100%. I can't understate how important confidence is for my day to day. It's like
yeah.
I tell my team this all the time. Is like when I was in an account executive position at the prior agency, I would get nervous about jumping on a 30-minute Zoom call with a business owner, right? And work myself up to make sure like I was on point and
Yeah.
I conducted myself professionally. And now it's become so rudimentary and just a part of the day to day. And but I know that's all confidence. I know it's all
Sure.
preparation. It's been there, done that. And if I always kick myself that if I had that same confidence in the sports world and believed that I got a Division I scholarship offer for a reason and I was meant to be there for a reason and told myself that rather than telling myself do not beam this batter or do not throw this ball all over a wayside,
Yeah.
that the positive thoughts over the negative thoughts could have dictated a whole lot differently. And that's
Yeah.
what from like a company culture standpoint of what we're building at Power, if I have my team leave with anything, it's that they're confident in their abilities and that they
Yeah.
grow their confidence across the services that we offer. Because I believe
Right.
confident people will take more risks and push things forward a
Yeah.
lot faster than somebody that's worrying about messing up, obviously, or doesn't believe in what they're doing, that they'll
Hmm.
always be kind of restraining themselves in some capacity.
Well, and I think even going back to something you said earlier about failure, I think that confident people, when they exude that confidence, they do it knowing that I've done this before, and I know that I also could fail, but that's okay. I know that I can get back up, and I can recover. And
Yeah.
I think that's one of the biggest things that leaders, especially emerging leaders, I work a lot with emerging leaders. And so I think a lot of emerging leaders need to maybe understand that failure is part of the process and it's part of the game. And, you win some games, you lose some games. And when you lose those games, you have to reflect and go, hey, what could I do differently going forward? And that builds confidence too. And, one of the things that I think is important is having a safe space to be able to kind of reflect on those things and talk about them and process them. And when you process that in a safe space, it gives you the power of understanding. And, experience isn't the best teacher, but evaluated experience really is. And so I think that's so powerful when we can sit back and evaluate those experiences.
Yeah, absolutely. For me personally, it's a little bit of like building up that resilience and understanding
Yeah.
where you've came from, what you've gotten through, and knowing that if you ever face it again, just like you said, you'll be able to get through it. And then from the safe space aspect is I want to build a company culture and I want my team members to be on
Mm.
board and knowing that this is a place where you can experiment and you can test the
Yeah.
waters.
Yeah.
And one big thing that we do at Power is we have a pretty robust summer internship program where all of our interns come in and they actually work on client projects. Like
Mm.
this is not something where we just give them guinea pig cases or internal efforts. It
Sure.
is, hey, you're working with any one of our clients, but we have guardrails, we have security
Sure.
blankets that it's not
Sure.
like what you do is going to go directly in the CEO's hands. And if you mess it up, we're screwed.
Hmm.
But yeah, we have layers of review processes and evaluation to make sure that it's at our standard once all is said and done. But in my opinion, again, I have grown so much by having my feet to the fire when I was at the prior agency
Sure.
and working through that and going through that firsthand experience that that's the quickest way I think people can grow is
Hmm.
it's the old mantra of you learn more in the first 2 weeks of work than you do for your entire education, right? Is that
Yeah.
I want these interns that are coming in to learn from those experiences and say, hey, here's how does things. Here's how an agency would typically do things, and
Yeah.
here's how you market for a business of all shapes and sizes. And we found a lot of success with our interns providing transparent feedback once it's all said and done that they've gained so much experience and so much exposure that they're going to classes their next semester at their university where they're talking about things they just worked on for 3 months, basically. So
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
experimentation, that safe space to what you described, David, is 100% what we're trying to foster at our agency as well.
Yeah. Something you said right there. It gave me a flashback to my university days, and which has been a long, long time ago. However, I had one professor in an accounting class that was he was a CFO of a really large company in the town that I was going to school in, and one of the things he would always do is wherever we were in the chapter or whatever concept he was going over, he would always say, hey, look, I know that the book tells you to do it this way, but if you did this in my company, I'd fire you because this is not the way we do things, and here's why. And I always remembered that because so oftentimes there's a disconnect between an education perspective and a practical perspective, or a in theory perspective and a in practice perspective. And so I love that you do that with your interns, because I think giving them practical application in real world, I mean, there's no better way to grow than to do that.
100%. And I found that even in the practical aspect of they're working on real-time projects with clients, we still can teach them after the fact. If they miss a mark or two or they do some things that are incorrect, rather than say like, hey, here is the research that Meta or Google has provided about marketing best practices for a business like this, we say, hey, here's how you should have thought about this, or here for next time is what
Yeah.
you could do a little bit differently that might be more effective and might be more efficient for you and make life easier. That
Yeah.
maybe you did an extra step or two that you didn't have to, but you learn from it and you grow. And we can apply that to a direct use case that also services the client and pushes the client's business forward as well, which at the end
Yeah.
of the day is the only reason we're in business and the only thing we want to focus on at Power. So.
Right, right. So, Colton, I'm curious, everybody has a vision for their business and, a vision for growth. You, in, 3 short years have grown, dramatically and amazingly, and
Thank
it's
you.
wonderful. What's the next growth, like path look like? What's the next plateau or the next mountain that you're climbing?
Yeah, it's funny, and I'm smiling, David, because I've been getting asked this a lot, and
Have
it's
you?
the one dang question that I don't have a fully confident answer with. And it's because we've grown a lot quicker than I was expecting, and it's a
Sure.
great problem to have.
Right.
And we aren't overwhelmed by the scale. Our team has been able to enhance our servicing as we've onboarded new clients.
Nice.
And the big initiative we have now for 2025 is to work with some bigger companies, as I would say, in the sense
Hmm.
of we have worked with a lot of startups, and that's because we're very nimble and small businesses. We're very nimble,
Yeah.
we're affordable, we're able to customize our services
Hmm.
for individuals that are desperately craving and desperately need marketing, but haven't been able to work with
Mm.
a very expensive agency or third party service because it would break the bank.
Yeah.
And we built out these models that allow for that flexibility. So now
Mm.
taking that a step further, it's, hey, how do we crack the code of medium-sized businesses? What offers and customization can we build into our servicings that
Hmm.
pertain specifically to them? And I alluded to, we just hit the 100 mark. We were at
Yeah.
97 clients going into 2025, and we're at 110 now, talking in the
Wow.
second week of March,
Yeah.
that we've been able to answer that question and ring that bell a little bit, which has been awesome. Like
That's great.
we're onboarding bigger clients as well since we've shifted our focus
Hmm.
and have that little bit of a pivot that
Yeah.
now I want us to continue challenging ourselves. We really challenged ourselves at the start of 2025. We're pacing to exceed those goals. What's
Nice.
the next focus? How are we going to enhance our operational efficiency, improve our skill sets to be more effective with the projects that we execute for clients?
Mm.
So I'm giving a lot of high level answers, and I
Yeah.
want to be able to give specifics, but nonetheless, it's pushing us forward in more ways than one because we have a really good team now. We have a really good basis of clients
Yeah.
that we're not looking to really shift our overall operations or the overall agency outlook. It's just kind of get better, continue to improve, get more efficient, and everything kind of keep that ball rolling in a productive manner. So.
Yeah, no, I love that. And I know how hard it is to, you're climbing the mountain, and when you climb the mountain and you get to the top, the one thing I know is that there's always another mountain. There's one you look out into on the horizon, and you're like, oh man, that's a taller mountain, and I want to get
Yeah.
there. And so, it's a process of like you've got to sometimes you have to just stop and look out and look ahead and give
Yeah.
yourself that space. But right now you're still climbing. So I totally get that. Well,
Thank
if,
you. Yeah.
yeah, go
I
ahead.
was gonna say I've just finished reading a book that's called it was called $1 Million in 12 Months. It's an e-commerce
Oh,
marketing
cool.
focused book. But the author put it in perspective of he said when he hit his first million, he got like a little bit depressed. And it was in a sense of this was his goal he was working so hard for that he
Yeah.
planned all the way up to it, but he didn't plan beyond it. So once he hit that
Yeah.
point, he was like, what the heck do I do next? And
Right.
for me, that's been a little bit of an experience with goal setting is that we've set these goals, but we've been so fortunate to have these great advocates that again give word of mouth referrals and onboard new clients that we've shattered them quicker than what I'd hopeful for, which is again a great problem to have. I'm not complaining about
Yes.
it,
Yes.
but I'm a big believer in goal setting and a big believer in planning, and I want to do it right. So now the 2025 mindset and the future mindset for Power is let's really challenge ourselves. Let's create these big, audacious goals that we can
Yeah.
shoot for. And anything that progresses towards that will be a big win and cause a lot of growth to get there, even if we don't get to the overall mountain top of that one particular instance. But I really
Mm.
liked the way in this book that they put it because it makes total sense is what do you do next once you hit that goal? And I want to make sure we're always working towards something.
Yeah, and one of the things that I'll always, tell, the business owners that I work with is, try to make sure that you're always just a little bit ahead. Every quarter, take some time out to be able to vision and look, even if you're only looking 6 months ahead, that's cool. But take time to preview what you're working on and what comes next, just to be able to, to kind of take a step back. Taking that step back, I know in a startup, it's really easy to think you got to keep going full tilt, but sometimes you do have to put it into neutral a little bit, just to kind of make sure that you're doing things right. You have a chance to see what's coming next, and be a little bit more visioning and working on the business rather than is in the business, as Michael Gerber might say. So,
Absolutely.
But
And
yeah,
that's like one of our mutual friends for both of us is Kiana Loren, and
yes,
she's a professional coach for me, business coach that I started working with around Q3 of last year. And that honestly, that's the biggest thing that she challenged me with, is with my day to day being immersed in the client activity and having
yeah,
meeting after meeting talking to our clients. I was not kind of accounting or blocking off time for me to think about how to push power forward, which
hmm,
again could create issues well down the road. Obviously, if we're not if the leader and the individual at the top of the hierarchy is not trying to think of how are we going to proactively push things forward.
yeah,
So delegation, she has taught me a ton as it relates to delegation and
yep,
prioritizing, freeing up my time because it's still productive. That was the biggest thing for me
yeah,
in the
yeah,
paradigm shift, is I thought if I wasn't on a client meeting, if I wasn't interacting with a client, I was being lazy. I was doing something wrong. But if I'm
yeah.
thinking about power and thinking of new ideas to push my own business forward, it could be
Mm.
even more productive than what I'm doing to service that one client in that one particular instance, theoretically.
Yeah.
So that I wholeheartedly agree with you, and that's something that I personally have been trying to work a lot harder at.
Yeah, I'm so glad. That sounds like Kiana, and I'm so glad she's pushing you on that, because it really does make a big difference, and it is a paradigm shift, because so often you start the business and you are running and wearing so many hats, and yet that you don't take time to be the business owner,
Yeah.
and you're the business doer, but being the business owner too is really important. Man,
Yeah.
I love that, Colton. If you were to kind of like summarize maybe some of the maybe one or two of your biggest lessons that you've learned as a business owner, what would maybe or two of those be?
The first one that jumps out at me is I am astonished at how many business owners come to me and say that they haven't felt like cared for by vendors they worked with or agencies they have. Like I'll
Okay.
tell you
Yeah.
transparently, one of the biggest ways that we close sales and bring on new clients is people coming to say they've been burnt by prior agencies in the past and they haven't
Uh,
felt the love, so to speak.
sure.
So for me, in this newfound world of what we do with digital marketing, where it's all about AI and it's all about efficiency, and it's and people in my position are trying to get as hands off as possible.
Mm.
We're finding winning being more hands on and caring more and being people centric. Is I've worked with so many companies and so many businesses that everybody says this is a people business. It's all about the people,
Yeah.
but nobody wants to interact with the people, basically.
Right.
Uh,
Right.
so so that
Doesn't
that's
make
been the
sense.
biggest lesson. Yeah, that's been the biggest lesson and shock for me, but it's also been the biggest teaching point of I know we're doing something right. Is if we're putting our clients first in every scenario,
Mm.
then we're going to win in a lot of cases. That even if we execute a lackluster campaign or our strategy and idea just wasn't worthwhile in that one particular instance, the business owner on the other end knows that Colton cares about the company and the power team cares to push their business forward, that they're
Mm.
going to give us a lot more flexibility and freedom to test the waters, experiment, be
Mm-hmm.
confident in the efforts we're putting forward because we are passionate about growing their business and caring for them. So that's
Yeah.
been one very critical lesson that I've seen from a negative side of people coming to the door looking for help, but
Yeah.
also for our benefit and positive of moving forward, knowing that at the end of the day, we can be as well versed in all these different marketing services as possible. But if we don't prioritize and care about the client, it's all for naught.
Yeah, yeah, no, that's great. I love that. That's such a good lesson, and I think it's one in the world that we live in that it's so easy to text message or Slack message or be impersonal and be only digital, but human to human, having those conversations and having that care it means so much. And it truly, I think from a business perspective, it solidifies a relationship, because you know that, like you said, even if we were off target on our strategy, you know that we did it out of care and out of love for your company. And so we just pivot, we change, we adapt, right?
Correct. And I'm all about saving time. Like I know the old the message of this could have been an email, and getting off of Zoom calls consistently. And believe me, like I'm in that team a lot of the time as
Sure.
well. But for me, you pull so much out of just dialogue and interactions that even if me and a client plan to have a conversation about a monthly report, so just the typical monthly touch base, it may spark two or three ideas to push the whole business forward in a different direction, because we're
Yeah.
just brainstorming and we're just communicating effectively with one another, bouncing ideas. We like to use the word at Power calling brain dumping, and
Sure.
just throwing out any wild and wacky ideas out there that could stick. And I think that stuff can't happen in an email naturally,
Yeah.
or you're going to be writing novels to one another. That's not
Right.
efficient by
That's
any
not good.
means.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. That's funny. Well, Colton, what's maybe one thing that we haven't talked about today that maybe we should have, just in terms of your own growth journey, both personally or professionally, anything else maybe that you'd want to share with the audience?
No, honestly, David, I think we kind of covered off on it pretty holistically. Is that this was a fantastic dialogue. I hope that the audience out there gets a good sense of kind of who I am, what we're about, and takes away a nugget or two. But
Yeah.
for me, if I kind of boil it down to what has led me to a lot of success personally, from a personal growth side and a professional growth side, it's kind of the main sticking points we talked about up front. Is I was not a completely confident person at the start, and I've gained that, especially professionally, that I know
Hmm.
has led to a lot of success as we've continued to grow our company.
Hmm.
And the biggest thing for me is now instilling that in my team members and creating a culture that does that from top to bottom.
Hmm.
And making sure that my team always feels confident in their abilities, because I've seen firsthand, I've experienced it from a baseball side to a professional side, what a lacking of confidence or a lacking of the ability to test and experiment, how it can hamstring somebody and really hinder them. That's the biggest takeaway that I could have for anybody is if you're working on yourself, work on ways that you can become more confident, work on ways that you can experiment and potentially fail, so that you can learn from it and be better on it on the other side, because I
Hmm.
know it's done wonders for my life.
Yeah, man, I love that, Colton. Well, thank you so much for sharing your journey, sharing your failures, your successes, and I am so excited to see what your next mountain you're going to climb looks like, and I'm so excited to see the success that is taking place in Power. So, thanks for being here, my friend. I really appreciate it.
No, thank you for the opportunity. I appreciate it as well. And yeah, when I get a more specific answer of where Power will be in the future, you'll be the first person I call. Don't you
You
worry.
come
So,
back. Yeah, absolutely. I love it. I love it.
awesome.
All right, my friend. Well, hey, for those of you who are listening in on this conversation, what's one thing that you're going to take away from the conversation? Maybe it's, on the topic of confidence. Maybe it's the topic of being resilient or failure, whatever it might be for you. Take action on that one thing, because it's a great conversation. It's great to be able to learn from other leaders, but if we don't take action on it, it's just a great conversation. So I want to encourage you, if you're watching here on YouTube or if you're listening, make sure that you write that one thing down and put it in your calendar and take action on it this week. And so that's my encouragement to you. And I really appreciate you listening and really subscribing even to the podcast. So, and if you're not a subscriber, why don't you go do that as well right now? So thanks again for being in the growth space, and we'll talk to you again soon. Be well.